She actually died screaming. And the Carters are responsible. But one of them is just a little more responsible than the other. Question is, did Sean Carter delete his mistress, his pregnant mistress, because his wife was jealous? Or could it be possible that maybe his wife's temper is just a little worse than most people think? And maybe he just had to clean it up to protect the brand's sake.
Beyonce is trending heavy right now, and the internet is acting like the ground is shaking under her cowboy boots. Ever since 50 Cent started dropping what he calls receipts tied to rumors involving Sean Combs, fans are side-eyeing everything. At first, people swore Beyonce had nothing to do with whatever drama was circling around Diddy and Jay-Z, but online chatter is now spinning a very different story.
Yo, watch how Jay-Z quickly turned around when P. Diddy greeted Beyonce with a touch on her shoulder. Jay-Z came out of nowhere. This was at the Rock Nation brunch back in 2018. Jay-Z definitely wasn't having it.
Some wild talk even suggests tension in her marriage, with people recklessly speculating about her disappearing overseas like Russell Simmons did years ago, though none of this has been proven. Still, once rumors hit the timeline, they spread fast, and Beyoncé's name is right in the middle of it all. And trust, 50 Cent is not letting this moment slide at all.
Beyonce's Instagram account is the most unfollowed account on Instagram for the past week, and we all know why. Initially, she only lost 4 million followers to Eco 316, but we woke up today and she was at
Well, happy holidays. P. Diddy had a mental breakdown in prison, and Beyonce is heartbroken after the judge sides with Jay-Z's 13-year-old accuser. Let's get in.
Beyonce has been trending nonstop ever since Diddy's arrest, and social media smells blood. A viral TikTok trend popped off where people sarcastically ended every sentence with "Thank you, Beyonce," pointing at how stars act around her at award shows. Every time she steps out, grown celebrities line up just to speak to her like she's untouchable royalty. These aren't random fans either. These are industry insiders, actors, singers, power players, all treating her like she runs the universe. That level of worship has people whispering that maybe it's more than talent, more than fame, and more than just being Beyonce.
All funded by Sean Carter to make sure that Robert Kelly went to jail. Get his lick back. Why is nobody understanding that Dream Hampton was being financed and ran by Sean Carter? They were able to go and get all of these witnesses because he was there with Robert Kelly. How does Jay-Z sit down with Gayle King and she not ask him one question about the intersection between him and Aaliyah and Robert Kelly? This is insane that people keep refusing to see what's right there.
How many victims potentially do you think there could be?
Thousands. Thousands. I've talked to hundreds that I deal with still myself. I have 3 victims right now who are willing to give testimony about not only what Mr. Carter has done to them, but his wife as well. They're a nasty little couple. They do nasty things.
What do you think happened with Kim
Keeping people against their will. Putting people on planes while they're unconscious, just like Aaliyah got on that plane. Unconscious. There's a lot of things that people don't want to talk about.
When word spread that 50 Cent was openly accusing Beyonce of serious wrongdoing, one name instantly started buzzing across the internet: Kathy White. Officially, Kathy White's passing was ruled a brain aneurysm, and that finding was backed up by an autopsy. On paper, the case was closed, but not everyone accepted that explanation, and that's where the controversy really took off. Jaguar Wright publicly rejected the official story and made shocking claims, pointing fingers at both Beyonce and Jay-Z. She insisted there was more happening behind the scenes than people were being told. Those statements alone sent shockwaves online, especially since Jaguar has a long history of calling out industry power players without hesitation.
I want you to think about this. Sean Carter is responsible for enacting Hype Williams to put Aaliyah on a faulty plane to move her out the way as punishment for rejecting him, and so he could level up Beyonce, who was struggling.
Things escalated even more after Jaguar appeared on Piers Morgan Uncensored, a moment that nearly triggered legal action from Beyonce and Jay-Z themselves. During that interview, Jaguar made explosive allegations, including the claim that Beyonce was connected to what happened to Aaliyah, a statement that instantly reignited one of the industry's darkest rumors. For years, whispers have floated around that Aaliyah's tragic death somehow cleared space for Beyonce's rise to the top. Some even claim jealousy played a role, pointing to stories that Jay-Z only pursued Beyonce after his interest in Aaliyah didn't work out.
I was at a party at Diddy crib in LA. This was the beginning of 2020. You know what I mean? Diddy had put everybody else out the crib, like the influx of people, he had put them out. But he had took a liking to me in particular around the time, man. It was really, you know what I mean, like putting his arm around me.
Right.
So he had put majority of the people out, but he allowed me to stay in there.
Mm-hmm.
Me and, you know, maybe about 15 others, you know,
right.
Jay-Z and Beyonce being, you know, two of the other 15 people in the room. So that'll just put into perspective of the type of company I was in
right.
at the moment, you know. And she came over and introduced herself to me like as if she had to.
Right.
Beyonce, cut it out. But I'm a big fan of your work, you know what I'm saying? Whoop the whoop, and that was just dope. That was dope as hell to me, man. That was dope.
None of this has ever been proven, but the tragic and mysterious details surrounding Aaliyah's final moments continue to keep these theories alive, especially since reports long claimed she did not want to board that plane. Over the years, some of the most extreme rumors online have gone so far as to claim that Aaliyah was pressured and manipulated in her final moments, but there has never been any proof backing those stories up. These claims circulate mostly in online spaces and interviews, often repeated without evidence, yet they continue to shock people every time they resurface. Nothing about those accusations has ever been confirmed, but their existence alone keeps the speculation alive. What has been openly discussed is how deeply connected Aaliyah was to powerful figures in the industry.
I was just recently contacted by someone who wanted me to essentially represent them in the sale of one of the Diddy tapes. So, which I declined that because...
Wait a minute. Say that again. Say that again. Back up. You're saying that there's tapes and they're being shopped?
Yes, there have been people already shopping.
We've heard about the tapes, but
yes.
The shopping thing is...
Yes, there already have been tapes leaking around Hollywood, being shopped around to individuals in Hollywood. But one particular person contacted me to shop a particular video they were in possession of and to contact the person who was in the video to see if they were interested in purchasing the video before it became a public knowledge.
I've heard this before, so like a catch and kill.
Catch and kill, correct.
Wow. Can you, and I guess you can't reveal the person who is on
No,
this
I
tape.
can't explain who the person was, but
High profile?
Mr. Combs was in the tape, and this other person is, I would venture to say, more high profile than Mr. Combs.
Really? Really? And you've seen it?
I've seen stills of the video.
Okay.
So
you can verify
that it exists, that it's real, that the other person in the video is very visible. It's no question if it's that person in the video. And I can tell the video is pornographic in nature.
Oh, my. All right. So we know that he videotaped a lot of activities at his home, did he? And it sounds like there was probably a lot of hidden cameras as well. Is that what is being talked about?
Yes. This was actually in his Atlanta home, at a home he had in Atlanta at one point. And it does seem that the person isn't like looking into the video. So it's to me, doesn't seem like that person knows they're being videotaped.
Damon Dash previously spoke about Jay-Z pursuing Aaliyah romantically, especially after her highly publicized past with R. Kelly. According to Dame, Jay-Z made repeated efforts, sending flowers and inviting her to events, but Aaliyah didn't return that same interest. She kept her distance, and that detail alone surprised a lot of fans. What really caught people off guard later was the sudden shift in public conversation involving Beyonce. For years, most speculation centered only around Jay-Z, not her. Back when Beyonce was still part of Destiny's Child, there were talks about them possibly signing with Bad Boy Records. That deal never happened, reportedly because Sean Combs was only interested in Beyonce, not the full group. What's wild is that rumors claim those connections didn't just disappear, and online chatter insists those industry ties quietly continued for years, leading people to question what was really happening behind closed doors. One of the most talked about rumors floating around online involves what people loosely refer to as private industry gatherings. And for a long time, many weren't sure how much Beyonce was actually connected to any of it. That uncertainty shifted after DaBaby sat down with Shannon Sharpe and shared a story that immediately raised eyebrows. According to DaBaby, he arrived at Sean Combs's home expecting a normal business conversation, only for the atmosphere to feel very different from what he was prepared for. He didn't go into graphic detail, but the way he described the situation left a lot open to interpretation, and the internet ran with it fast. Things got even messier when attorney Ariel Mitchell later gave an interview that poured gasoline on the situation. She claimed someone had reached out to her for legal advice about selling a recording allegedly involving Diddy and another well-known public figure. Ariel never named Beyonce directly, but the timing of her comments coming right after DaBaby's interview had social media connecting dots on its own. Once again, nothing has been confirmed, but the overlap was enough to send speculation into overdrive and pull Beyonce even deeper into conversations she never publicly addressed. Now here's where things get real interesting. Word floating around online is that Beyonce may already be moving quietly to protect herself, especially after 50 Cent dropped his recent documentary. That release shook the internet, and 50 didn't exactly calm things down afterward either. He openly said there were things he wanted to include but couldn't, hinting that more information is coming later. According to 50, a follow-up project is already being planned for next year. Basically, a part 2, but louder, messier, and calling out even more names. While it's still unclear whether Beyonce or Jay-Z would actually be mentioned, just the possibility alone has fans buzzing non-stop. And that's where the whispers really start heating up. A blind item from someone claiming to be close to Beyonce says she's been under extreme pressure behind the scenes. Allegedly, she's talked about leaving the country before, not as guilt, but as an escape from constant control, nonstop scrutiny, and people managing every move she makes. The source claims insiders have quietly worried she might disappear without warning one day, fed up and done with it all. None of this has been confirmed, but the way these rumors keep stacking has people watching every move she makes extra closely. Now here's where the blind item really turns heads. According to the source, Beyonce has allegedly been struggling emotionally behind closed doors for a long time. The claim is that people around her see her as overwhelmed and exhausted, not because she's weak, but because the pressure never stops. The same source says her team worries less about her well-being and more about protecting the empire she represents. To them, she's not just an artist, she's the main asset, and losing control over her would shake everything. The blind item claims she's been managed tightly for years, but that grip is starting to slip. Beyonce is reportedly fed up with constant oversight. tired of decisions being made for her, and especially worn down by influence from both her inner circle and her marriage to Jay-Z. What really scares her, according to the rumor, is remembering what allegedly happened to idols before her who tried to break free. That fear is what's keeping her moves quiet and calculated. The source insists she's setting things up carefully so that when she finally steps away, she won't be forced back into the spotlight. So if shows suddenly get canceled or she starts spending a lot more time overseas, the claim is that it won't be random or for fun. Believe it or not, these whispers line up with comments previously made by YouTuber Storm Monroe, who hinted that Beyonce might eventually distance herself from Jay-Z to protect herself if things spiral. At this point, people aren't just watching the rumors, they're watching the moves. Every delayed appearance, every quiet moment, every headline that feels a little off has fans dissecting everything around Beyonce. The silence is what's making folks nervous. When someone at her level stops addressing the noise, people assume something bigger is brewing behind the scenes. What makes this even heavier is how all these separate stories, blind items, interviews, and old industry whispers keep lining up. From 50 Cent teasing more revelations, to long-standing talk about power, control, and loyalty inside elite circles, it feels like the walls are slowly closing in. Nobody is saying they know the full truth, but too many pieces are stacking for people to ignore anymore. And here's the thing. History shows that when major figures sense the spotlight shifting from admiration to investigation, they don't wait around. They move quietly, protect themselves, and let time do the talking. Whether these rumors fade away or explode wide open, one thing is clear, this story isn't done, not even close. If you want to stay ahead of every twist, every receipt, and every industry secret before it goes mainstream, make sure you subscribe to JuicyReel right now. You don't want to be late when the next chapter drops. What's really keeping people locked in is how quiet everything suddenly became. No denials, no clear statements, no big public pushback from Beyonce or her camp. And in today's industry, silence speaks loud. Fans are used to seeing damage control move fast, but this time, the response feels delayed, calculated, almost strategic. Meanwhile, old interviews are resurfacing, forgotten clips are being reposted, and people are stitching together timelines that were never meant to line up. Every past connection to Sean Combs, every old award show moment, every lyric people once brushed off as artistic flair is now being re-examined under a microscope. It's like the internet decided to become its own investigation team overnight. What makes it even heavier is that industry insiders keep hinting that there's more behind the scenes than the public will ever see. Contracts, loyalty agreements, favors, and power dynamics that don't show up in headlines but shape everything quietly. The longer this drags on, the more people believe the real story isn't about one rumor, but about how the entire system protects its biggest stars until it suddenly doesn't anymore. And once that shift starts, it rarely stops. At this stage, the conversation has shifted from gossip to something way heavier. People aren't just asking what is true anymore, they're asking why certain stories were protected for so long. The spotlight keeps circling back to how power really works at the highest level of entertainment and why names like Beyonce stay insulated no matter how loud the noise gets. Behind the scenes, insiders claim there's panic, not public panic, but quiet scrambling, meetings happening off the radar, advisors tightening circles, lawyers double-checking old agreements, and longtime allies suddenly going silent. When the internet starts connecting dots that were never meant to be connected, it forces people at the top to move differently. That's when silence becomes a shield, not a mistake. What's wild is how many artists and industry figures are now being pulled into the conversation without saying a word themselves. Every past collaboration, every shared stage, every old friendship is being reanalyzed like evidence. People are replaying award show footage, pausing red carpet clips, and reading body language like it's code. Moments that once looked harmless are suddenly being treated like clues. The chatter around Jay-Z has also intensified. Some fans believe he's always been the real power player behind the scenes, while others argue he's just another piece in a much bigger machine. Either way, the idea that loyalty in the industry comes with unspoken rules has never felt more obvious. Break those rules, and the consequences can be career-ending. What really changed everything is how fearless the internet has become. Years ago, these conversations would have been shut down fast, labeled conspiracy, and buried. Now people keep receipts, screen recordings, archived interviews, and old tweets that never truly disappear. The public doesn't forget anymore, and they don't let stories fade quietly. Whether these rumors ever get confirmed or not, one thing feels undeniable. The curtain has been pulled back just enough for people to realize how much they don't know. And once that awareness sets in, it creates a hunger for truth that no amount of silence can fully control. The industry thrives on image, but right now, image alone doesn't seem strong enough to hold the line. By now, the atmosphere around this entire situation feels different, heavier, almost uncomfortable. What started as whispers has turned into a constant hum that refuses to fade, and people can sense that something behind the curtain is shifting. Every major industry moment now feels connected, even when it probably isn't, and that's the danger when trust starts breaking down. A big part of the conversation keeps circling back to control. Who really has it? Who benefits from it? And who's been trapped by it for years without the public ever noticing? Fans are beginning to question whether icons like Beyonce were always as free as they appeared, or if the image was carefully managed to hide pressure most people could never survive. Fame at that level doesn't just come with success, it comes with expectations, contracts, and invisible rules. What's making people uneasy is how many former industry voices are suddenly speaking in coded language. Nobody is naming names outright, but the hints are sharp enough that listeners feel exactly who they're talking about. Phrases like sacrifice, loyalty, and price of staying on top keep popping up in interviews, podcasts, and old clips resurfacing online. It feels like people are saying just enough to protect themselves while still letting the message land. Meanwhile, the silence from Jay-Z is being read 10 different ways. Some believe silence equals confidence, others see it as strategic waiting. In the court of public opinion, though, silence doesn't pause the trial. It just gives everyone more room to speculate. And speculation right now is moving faster than facts ever could. What really adds pressure is the growing belief that this isn't about one artist or one couple anymore. People are starting to talk about systems, about how power circulates, about how careers are built and protected until they aren't. Once that idea takes hold, it changes how fans look at everything, from award shows to chart success. At the end of the day, the industry thrives on illusion. But once people start questioning the illusion itself, the magic wears off fast. Whether this moment fades or explodes, one thing is clear. The public isn't satisfied with surface-level answers anymore. They want transparency, accountability, and truth, even if that truth is uncomfortable. And when that demand hits critical mass, even the biggest names feel the pressure closing in. Now the conversation is drifting into dangerous territory, not because of any single rumor, but because people are starting to question the entire structure that protects the biggest names. Once that happens, there's no easy reset button. Fans aren't just watching celebrities anymore. They're watching managers, lawyers, labels, and the silent power brokers who never step in front of cameras. The focus keeps circling back to how someone as massive as Beyonce could stay untouched while chaos swirls all around her. Supporters argue that fame alone explains it, But critics say it's deeper than that. They point to timing, influence, and the way narratives are shaped before the public even knows there's a story. In today's world, perception moves faster than truth, and whoever controls the perception controls everything. What's adding fuel is how many old industry stories are suddenly being retold with new meaning. Things that once sounded like bragging now sound like warnings. Lines from interviews, lyrics from songs, and moments that used to feel empowering are now being reinterpreted as survival tactics. It's like people are realizing that staying on top sometimes means staying silent. There's also growing chatter about how relationships function at elite levels. The partnership between Beyonce and Jay-Z is being analyzed less as romance and more as strategy. Fans are debating whether love and business were ever separate for them, or if everything was always intertwined from the start. When power couples move, they don't just move emotionally, they move financially, legally, and culturally. What really changed the mood is the realization that no one is rushing to shut these conversations down anymore. Years ago, stories like this would vanish overnight. Now, they linger, grow, and evolve. People keep asking why no clear statements are being made, why the silence feels intentional, and why everyone seems to be waiting for something. The scariest part for the industry isn't whether these rumors are true or false. It's that the public no longer trusts the system to tell them the truth either way. Once that trust breaks, every headline becomes suspicious, every denial feels rehearsed, and every silence feels loaded. And when that mindset takes hold, even the strongest empires start to feel unstable. At this point, the tension isn't just online anymore. It feels like it's hovering over the entire industry. People are starting to say this moment marks a shift, not because any single claim has been proven, but because the public is no longer willing to separate art from accountability. Once that line blurs, even legends aren't protected the same way. What's striking is how carefully everyone around Beyonce is moving. No impulsive interviews, no emotional statements, no surprise appearances meant to flip the narrative. Everything feels measured, like every word is being weighed by teams of advisors before it ever leaves a mouth. That level of caution tells fans this isn't just noise being ignored, it's pressure being managed. Meanwhile, conversations about power keep growing louder. People are questioning how long influence can override curiosity, and whether loyalty inside elite circles is starting to crack. When insiders begin hinting instead of denying, it creates a vacuum that speculation rushes to fill. And the longer that vacuum exists, the harder it becomes to control what rushes in. There's also renewed focus on how fame reshapes personal freedom. Fans are asking whether stars at the top ever truly get to make independent choices, or if success locks them into roles they can't step away from without consequences. The idea that walking away could be more dangerous than staying is unsettling, but it's a thought that keeps surfacing again and again. The marriage between Beyonce and Jay-Z continues to be viewed through this new lens, not as gossip, but as structure. Two brands, two legacies, one shared risk. People are debating whether distance, silence, or unity is the smartest move when pressure mounts this high. Every option seems to carry its own consequences. What makes this chapter different from past controversies is that nobody seems eager to rush the ending. The industry is waiting, the public is watching, and the silence feels intentional on all sides. Whether clarity comes through truth, time, or distraction, one thing is clear. Once people start questioning the system itself, the story doesn't really end. It just keeps evolving, waiting for the moment when something finally breaks the quiet. By now, it's not just fans watching from the outside, it's other celebrities too. When people inside the same circles start paying attention, you know the energy has shifted. Artists who once stayed quiet are suddenly choosing their words carefully, dodging questions, or skipping interviews altogether. Nobody wants to be the next name dragged into a story they didn't ask to be part of. What's clear is that the silence surrounding Beyonce isn't accidental. At this level, silence is a strategy, and every pause sends a message. Fans keep asking why there hasn't been a strong denial or a clean shutdown of the rumors. In the absence of answers, people fill in the gaps themselves, and that's where things spiral fast. Behind closed doors, insiders claim conversations are happening that the public will never hear. Old contracts are being reviewed, partnerships reassessed, and future plans quietly adjusted. When power senses instability, it doesn't panic loudly, it moves quietly. That's what makes this moment feel different from every other controversy that came and went. The pressure around Jay-Z has also intensified. Some believe he's been preparing for this kind of scrutiny for years, while others think even he didn't expect this level of public suspicion. Either way, his influence is being examined from angles people never cared about before. Business moves that once looked genius are now being questioned for motive. What really changed the temperature is how much of this conversation is being driven by memory. The internet doesn't forget anymore. Archived clips, old interviews, lyrics, and backstage moments are resurfacing daily. People aren't accusing, they're comparing. They're lining up timelines and asking why certain stories were always redirected or buried. There's also growing talk about protection versus control. Fans are asking whether shielding a star from controversy is actually helping or if it's slowly cutting off their voice. The idea that success can become a cage is hitting harder than ever. When you're worth billions, freedom doesn't come cheap, and choices don't come without consequences. Another layer making this heavier is the fear of precedent. If someone as untouchable as Beyonce can be questioned publicly without immediate shutdown, what does that mean for everyone else? The industry runs on hierarchy, and once the top tier feels shaky, the whole structure trembles. Right now, everything feels paused, like the calm before something big. No explosions yet, no final reveals, just tension stretching longer than anyone expected. Whether this chapter ends with answers or fades into silence, one thing is certain. The public is no longer satisfied with carefully packaged narratives. They want context, truth, and accountability, even if it makes them uncomfortable. And once that demand becomes permanent, the industry can never fully go back to the way it was. At this point, the feeling around the situation isn't explosive, it's tense and stretched thin. People keep saying it feels like everyone is waiting for a signal, one move, one leak, one unexpected moment that finally breaks the stalemate. Until then, the silence stays heavy, and every small detail gets magnified. Fans are now watching patterns instead of headlines. Who shows up where, who doesn't, which appearances quietly disappear from schedules, and which interviews never happen. Every canceled plan sparks new theories, and every low-profile move gets read like strategy. When someone as visible as Beyonce starts moving differently, people notice immediately. What's also standing out is how carefully language is being used around her name. Media outlets sound cautious, commentators hedge their words, and even critics choose phrases that leave room for backtracking. That kind of restraint usually means there's uncertainty behind the scenes, not clarity. Nobody wants to be wrong when the dust finally settles. The spotlight on Jay-Z hasn't dimmed either. If anything, it's become more analytical. Fans are breaking down his past interviews, business partnerships, and public statements, not to accuse, but to understand how power is built and protected. The narrative is shifting from individuals to systems, and that's what makes this chapter dangerous for the industry as a whole. What really keeps the story alive is that nothing has officially ended. No final statement, no confirmed closure, no clear line drawn under the rumors. As long as that door stays open, speculation keeps breathing. People aren't demanding drama anymore, they're demanding transparency. And until something concrete happens, whether that's truth, denial, or distraction, the tension stays exactly where it is. Hanging, unresolved, and impossible to ignore.